Trade Agreement. Since this agreement came about, aptly trade between Canada and the European Union has surged by more than. Though Canada isn't, 65% is a huge gain. Pausing there during her visit, Minister Knott concentrated in three important spheres: vital minerals, energy, and exports of technology. These sectors are roaring, and Canada aims to present itself as a go-to Europe supply. But this isn't only about Europe. Canada is likewise moving its energy exports to Asia for decades. Almost all of Canada's oil has been bought by US, 97% of it, to be exact. But now Canada is making moves to diversify. New agreements between Japan and China represent a substantial change, ensuring Canadian energy has a wider spectrum of purchasers, whilst Canada is also strengthening relationships with Indonesia, South Korea, and other Indo-Pacific nations by deepening trade ties through the CPTPP thorough and progressive Pact for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Canada is obtaining access to some of the fastest growing economies in the world. This isn't simply about avoiding potentialist trade restrictions. It's about long-term economic resilience. Ma Young's journey to Brussels wasn't merely a regular diplomatic visit. It was a sign of Canada's larger plan. The goal is help create stronger trade alliances and lessen dependence on any one country. And while CETA has already been a success, there's still lots of untapped possibility. For example, a significant share of Canadian exports to the EU aren't even using the favored therapy offered under CETA. In 2020, only 57% of qualified exports took advantage of the deal's benefits. That means many businesses are leaving money on the table merely because they're not completely aware of how to exploit the Pact. Yuan is attempting to change that. She's making it a priority to aid Canadian businesses, mainly small and medium-sized enterprises. Is SEMAS Navigate International Trade, since SMMs make up 98% of Canadian firms. Making it easier for them to expand into global markets is a game-changer to aid with that. Canada launched the Can Export SMMs program, which provides financial support of up to $75,000 for businesses wishing to explore international markets. Since its start in 2016, the program has helped thousands of enterprises break into new marketplaces. But it became increasingly more crucial during the COVID-19 epidemic, recognizing that firms needed innovative ways to link internationally. The software adapted it, covering costs for setting up online retailers, employing digital marketing professionals, and even attending virtual trade shows. It also helps firms meet new international regulations and obtain market certifications. In short, it gave Canadian businesses the tools they needed to compete on a global scale. Canada is mixing things up. When it comes up commerce, for years, it relied mainly on the US, is its key economic partner. But lately, things are changing with new trade deals, extended partnerships, and a significant push to knock down walls. Canada is making sure its economy isn't beholden to just one country. At the core of this trend is CATHI trade agreement between Canada and the European Union. It's been in place for a while, but Canada and the EU are fine-tuning the details to make it easy for small and medium-sized businesses, SMMEs, to handle trade conflicts. Why? Because SMMEs are the backbone of the economy, and making trade fairer and smoother for them means more jobs, greater investment, and stronger international contacts. But Canada's trade ambitions don't stop at goods and services. There's also a major push to recognize professional qualifications between Canada and the EU. Architects, for example, will soon have an easier time operating across borders without jumping through endless bureaucratic hoops. This is wonderful news for professionals wishing to grow their careers internationally. And then there's the big ticket item: critical minerals. These are the materials that power everything from electric automobiles to wind turbines. Canada and the EU have been strengthening their cooperation to ensure they have safe, dependable supplies of these vital resources. It's a strategic action, one that helps both parties avoid depending on countries someone might not share their ideals. Back in 2021, Canada and the EU set up a collaboration centered on raw materials. They've been working on improved ways to mine, refine, and recycle these minerals, while retaining environmental and ethical standards high. Canada is particularly focused on ensuring that its mining industry doesn't merely extract resources, but does so in a way that respects Indigenous rights, defends the environment, and improve local economies. To back this up, Canada rolled out its key mineral strategy backed by almost $4 billion in funding. The goal: become a worldwide leader in responsibly sourced minerals. That means employing greener mining practices, investing in recycling technologies, and making sure Indigenous communities profit from mining developments going on or near their lands. This transformation isn't just about supply chains. It's about positioning Canada as a prominent actor in the worldwide transition to sustainable energy, increased need for electric vehicle batteries, solar panels, and high-tech manufacturing. Material Soaring Canada is making sure it has a seat at the table. But Canada isn't just looking to Europe. Commerce Minister Mar Young's latest visito, Brussels emphasized Canada's larger strategy: diversifying exports, building greater international partnerships, and lowering economic reliance on the US. That's why Canada is likewise expanding trade with Southeast Asia, working closely with countries like Indonesia and Ecuador, and pressing for more trade agreements outside of North America. At the same time, there's been a growing focus on fixing trade concerns at home. Believe it or not, Canada has plenty of internal trade restrictions that make it challenging for firms to run smoothly. Various provinces transport. Minister Anita Anand has been spearheading conversations to break down these boundaries, making it easier for goods, services, and workers to move freely within in the country. Why the unexpected hurry? Well, things took an unexpected shift in late 2024. Enjoying a private dinner at Mar-a-Lago, US President-elect Donald Trump made an unexpected recommendation to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He floated the notion of Canada becoming the 51st US state. At first, it seemed like an offhand comment greeted with some awkward laughing. But then Trump doubled down on December 10, 2024. He posted on Truth Social calling Trudeau Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. By December 18th, he was asserting without evidence that many Canadians were actually in favor of the notion. In early 2025, tensions between Canada and the United States took an unexpected turn. Former US President Donald Trump, back in the political spotlight, cranked up his invective against Canada, accusing it of failing to secure the shared boundary, but instead of concentrating attention primarily on border policies, he went considerably further, proposing a 25% duty on all Canadian imports unless Canada made changes. Then followed an even bolder assertion. Trump asserted that the US was virtually subsidizing Canada, throwing out an unconfirmed amount, $300 billion, and providing a remedy if the US was going to financially support its northern neighbor. Why not make Canada the 51st state? Naturally, this didn't set well with Canadians. On January 7, 2025, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau didn't mince words. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States, he stated. But Trump wasn't backing down. On Christmas Day, 2024, he took to Truth Social, promising Canadians that if they joined, the US taxes would cut by 60%, firms would increase in size, and they would gain complete military protection. A month later, he pushed the notion even farther during a news conference on January 7th. He ruled out military action, but made it plain that he wanted to use economic pressure to get his way. Shortly after, he tweeted this image of the US flag covering Canada, captioning it with a reference to Canada's national anthem. Then, on February 1st, he followed through on his earlier threat, announcing that 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods would take effect on February 4th. The next day, he maintained his annexation position, stating that Canada might avoid tariffs and get privileged security status. If it just agreed to become a US state, Canada wasted no time answering Jostone Day. Later, the Trudeau government fired back with its own 25% levies on $155 billion worth of American imports. But beyond the immediate commerce battle, something much larger was at action. President Trump's words provoked uproar. People dispute his tough stance toward Canada wasn't only about border security. Regarding trade conflicts at its foundation, this was about resources the United States has long relied on Canada's huge supply of raw materials. But with shifting global markets and developing energy strategies, that reliance has only grown. One of the greatest elements is oil. Canada ranks among the world's top crude oil manufacturers, cranking out 4.6 million barrels per day as of 2023. Over 97% of those shipments go straight to the US, making Canadian oil a key element of America's energy system. Alberta's oil sands lead the push, and US refineries, notably in the Midwest and Gulf Coast, are strongly reliant on this constant supply. In 2023 alone, crude oil exports generated $124 billion for Canada's economy. Beyond oil, natural gases, another essential component of the puzzle. Canada, the world's sixth largest producer, extracts 17.9 billion cubic feet every day, most of which flow south through a vast pipeline network. Their exports were valued at $113 billion in 2023, further cementing Canada's role as a key energy supplier for the US. However, energy isn't the only thing on the table. Canada is also one among the world's most significant sources of key minerals needed for modern technology. Nickel, for example, is a substantial component of electric vehicle batteries. In 2023, Canada produced around 59,000 tons, with about half of it going to the US, while other purchasers included China, the Netherlands, and Japan. Aluminum, a second vital resource. Canada ranked as the fourth largest producer in 2022. With a production of 3 million metric tons, the industry's valued at $16.5 billion in 2024 benefits from Canada's high reliance on hydroelectric power, making its production significantly cleaner than most global competitors. Gold is just as important. In 2022, Canada mined over 205 tons, rating fifth worldwide, with most of it exported to the UK, Switzerland, and the US. Uranium, second key resource, is equally important. With some of the richest uranium reserves in the world, Canada generated over 7,300 tons in 2022, to supplying 15% of the global market. The US, Germany, and the UK are among the major buyers. As nuclear power obtains increasing prominence as a clean energy source, and it doesn't stop there. Canada's hydroelectric power capacity is among the greatest globally, ranked third overall in 2022. It exported more than 50 terawatt-hours of hydroelectricity to the US, generating over $6 billion in revenue. This clean and renewable energy source has become greater valuable as the globe moves away from fossil fuels. Forestry, a second significant economic pillar, covering a massive 280 million hectares of Canadian land. In 2022, the industry contributed nearly $33 billion to Canada's economy, with exports reaching $45.6 billion, majority of which went straight to the US. Softwood lumber has long been a source of commercial issues between the two nations, although it remains an important export alongside pulp paper and newsprint. Potash, an essential component in fertilizer, is another Canadian asset that plays a role in the global food supply chain. Canada happens to be the world's largest producer, extracting 13 million metric tons in 2023, valued at $16.8 billion, with food security becoming an increasingly significant topic. Worldwide, PES is more valuable than ever. Even diamonds are part of the equation. Canada's Northwest Territories produced 2 million cats in 2023, producing $1.7 billion in exports, with the US and Belgium among the biggest buyers with so considerable riches and natural resources. Trump's strong economic approaching Canada wasn't totally unexpected. His administration characterized it as a method to strengthen U.S. security and economic stability, stating that closer integration, if not outright annexation, would provide consistent access to these crucial materials. But Canada wasn't buying, because although Trump's aggressive claims may have played well with certain audiences, the reality is that Canada has established its economy on its own terms. The country remains strongly connected with the U.S. through commerce, but that doesn't imply it's willing to cede control over its resources as tensions between the two countries continue to escalate. Both governments are looking at methods to preserve their economic interests for Canada. That means doubling down on diversification, developing new trade agreements, and guaranteeing that its most valuable industries continue in Canadian hands. Canada's economy is built on more than only commerce. It's fueled by an abundance of natural resources that fuel industries over the world. One of the biggest stakeholders in this scenario is aluminum. In 2024, the industry was worth an astounding $16.5 billion, and what sets Canada apart is how it creates it. Unlike many other countries that rely on fossil fuels, Canada's aluminum smelters run on hydroelectric power, making it one among the cleanest and most environmentally friendly aluminum manufacturers on the planet. Gold is another hefty weight in Canada's resource portfolio. In 2022 alone, the country extracted over 205 tons, ranking it among the top 5 producers. Internationally, much of this gold made its way to major financial hubs like the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and the United States, where it plays a vital role in everything from investment portfolios to high-tech manufacturing. But there's more underneath Canada's surface than just gold. The country is also one of the world's most major suppliers of uranium, an essential ingredient utilized to generate nuclear power, with production reaching 7,351 tons in 2022. Canada accounted for 15% of the world's uranium supply. Making is the second largest producer. The US, Germany, and the UK were among the biggest purchasers, as nuclear energy continues to be a vital part of worldwide energy security. Beyond minerals, Canada's renewable energy production is another distinguishing element of its economy. The country ranks 3rd worldwide in hydroelectric power, generating with Quebec, British Columbia, and Newfoundland and Labrador. Leading the way in 2022, Canada sent more than 50 TWh of hydroelectricity to the US, producing about $6 billion in revenue. This renewable energy source has become increasingly important as the globe movements away from fossil fuels and toward cleaner, more sustainable options. But Canada's natural richness isn't simply underground or in its rivers. It also extends across its enormous woodlands, encompassing 280 million hectares. Canada's boreal forests are an economic powerhouse. In 2022, the forestry industry added $33.4 billion to the country's GDP, with exports surpassing $45.6 billion. The US remains Canada's biggest customer, notably for softwood lumber, which has been at the focus of ongoing trade disagreements between the two nations. Beyond lumber, Canadian pulp, paper, and newspapers are sent abroad, making the industry a vital element of the global supply chain. Meanwhile, another important resource lies beneath Canada's dirt. Potash. This essential component in fertilizers is what helps crops flourish over the world, and Canada seems to be the largest producer on the world. In 2023, the nation extracted 13 million metric tons of potash, valued at $16.8 billion, with food security becoming a rising concern. Canada's involvement in feeding the planet has never been more important. And then there are diamonds. The Northwest Territories are home to several of the richest diamond mines in the global, generating 16.2 million carats in 2023. These high-quality diamonds, appraised at $1.7 billion, were mostly exported to Belgium, and the US, strengthening Canada's position in the luxury and industrial diamond markets. With such an enormous wealth of resources, it's no surprise that Canada's economic power has drawn global attention in recent months. Former US President Donald Trump has been making headlines by stating that the US should strengthen its hold on Canadian resources his administration has floated the idea that bringing Canada under American control would secure access to critical minerals while improving the Canadian economy in the process. Nonetheless, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has strongly rejected any thought of annexation. Creating is apparent that Canada's sovereignty is non-negotiable, despite the political back and forth. One thing stays unchanged: the United States is still Canada's largest trading partner, and the two economies remain deeply intertwined. At the same time, the world is shifting. The US has been imposing tariffs on some of its closest partners, forcing countries to reassess their trade strategies. As a result, several nations that once leaned primarily on American markets are now looking elsewhere. Canada, for example, has been building connections with the European Union through its CA Accord, while simultaneously expanding trade in the Indo-Pacific region through the CPTPP. Other US allies like Japan and South Korea are taking a similar path, establishing new trade deals with Europe, Asian nations, and other global marketplaces. This shift is part of a broader trend. Countries are moving away from leaning too much on the US and instead developing diversified trade relationships that make them less prone to American economic policies. While tariffs were originally meant to give the US an edge, they've had an UN-intended outcome. Instead of pressuring other countries to kowtow to American trade rules, they've encouraged allies to diversify, developing a new global commerce landscape where economic power is more balanced rather than losing out countries like Canada. The EU and Japan are benefiting from deeper relationships with new trading partners. By providing them access to different markets, they're securing more steady supply chains and decreasing volatility reliance on any single nation. Meanwhile, the US could find itself on the losing end of this transition as its allies create long-term agreements with other nations. American businesses may challenge to compete in global marketplaces. This could lead to employment losses, reduced exports, and a decreasing economic effect on the world stage for American customers. This shift could also indicate greater prices as tariffs force up the cost of imported goods. Everything from electronics to vehicles and even meals could become more expensive. Supply shortages and increasing production prices might further boost inflation, making everyday life more expensive for millions of Americans. What started as a trade plan to defend US industries has now grown into a full-scale rearrangement of global trade. The countries that were formerly America's closest partners are now finding new strategies to flourish as the US risks being left behind. If this tendency continues, the world may see a future where economic influence is more widely diffused, leaving America with less authority over global trade than ever before. What do you think about this trend in the geopolitics of the USA and Canada? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.